Welcome to Love You a Brunch, the podcast for foodies and those who'd rather be brunching. Hi, I'm Jodi Stapler. Today on Love You a Brunch, we speak with Lisa Ludwinski from Sister Pie in Detroit, Michigan. We talk to Lisa today about her new cookbook, her life, her business, and her belief system in running that business. Join us today on Love You a Brunch. Okay, so we are talking with Lisa Ludwinski from Sister Pie, owner and baker in Detroit. She has recently released a pie cookbook, and we're speaking with her today. So thank you for joining.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. You've been very busy.
Yes, I've been just kind of running around different places with the cookbook, trying to just kind of introduce it to people, sign books, and do some fun events. So it's been great.
Yeah. So we need to ask the question, where did you come up with the name Sister Pie?
Oh, yeah. That is a nickname that my younger sister and I started calling each other in college, just a term of endearment. And when I realized that I would be launching my future bakery business at Thanksgiving and I'd be making pie, it popped into my mind. And I think it's a sweet memory of the nickname, but also it speaks, I think, to our mission as a business to kind of be this welcoming, friendly place, this place that kind of embodies sisterhood at its various identities, and that's really important to us.
Right, right. Are all the employees women?
Currently, yes.
Okay, great. It's girl
Yeah,
power.
yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah. So let's talk about how you got started. You originally were a theater girl, right?
Yes, I did theater in high school, and then I majored in it in college. And so after college, I moved to New York to pursue that. I wanted to be a director actually,
Okay.
and then I got pretty distracted early on. I think mostly just because I was a young 20-something trying to figure out how to be an adult on my own. But I also was really interested in food. I think I was excited by what I was seeing and eating in New York all the time, and I was also kind of really into food blogs and food TV, and I think it was like just a time in the world when food was kind of having this new moment, I guess, food culture, like around 2007, 2008.
Yeah.
And so that's what really kind of ignited it for me. And I started out by filming a cooking show out of my apartment, and so I would put my laptop on top of my refrigerator and film a new episode every week,
That's
kind of
great.
learning how to cook and bake. Yeah.
Okay, and that was called Funny Side Up, right?
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Okay. I haven't been able to see any of them, but I do want to check them out. Do you have any still up online?
Yeah, there are a couple on our website actually.
Okay.
That, and then there's some on YouTube as well.
Okay. Great. I will
Yeah,
definitely check those out.
please do at your own risk.
Yeah. I do find that a lot of the chefs and bakers and cooks that I speak to first started out in some sort of artistic realm, either acting or musician or whatever, and they find themselves needing that outlet because it is hard to make it big in New York, or wherever, and you need that outlet. And cooking and baking is really an artistic outlet. So do you feel like when I don't know, you're able to prepare something that it is an art for you?
Um, to an extent, yeah. I definitely think I like the idea of putting flavors together and getting creative in that way. I think what feels to me most familiar from my theater experience is actually just being a business owner and being a boss. A
Mm-hmm.
business owner in the sense that I'm needing to be able to give speeches or do a business pitch or present something to people. And so I'm really able to use a lot of my kind of theatrical skills for that. And then also I think, yeah, just being a boss and figuring out how to run a place and do it in a way that feels right to you feels like a constant creative process.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not like as glamorous as, maybe acting would seem or something, but to me it's actually very fulfilling creatively.
Right. And there's something to be said about, when you're trying to pursue something in the arts field, you kind of have to be your own boss and your own marketer, and that kind of translates much better into starting your own business.
Totally, yeah. Um, I think I felt that a lot, and I think I'm very independent in that way, and
Yeah.
so that's been helpful.
Right. So you're in New York and you start getting into food, and I'm sure you were able to try all kinds of cool things at that time period in New York. But then you decide to start working as at like a bakery, is that right?
Yeah, yeah. So my first few years in New York, I was for money. I was working as a nanny, and then a variety of other part-time jobs, like working at Starbucks and working at a sandwich shop and a juice bar, and kind of like more front of house type jobs. And then I started working at Momofuku Milk Bar, I think in 2010. So they were just a couple years old at that point, and I worked behind the counter, and then kind of asked if I could start interning in the kitchen. And so it was kind of a slow process. And by the end of my time in New York, I was a full-time baker there.
Okay.
And that was a really awesome way to really get my feet wet, and to understand the difference between baking at home and baking on a pretty large commercial scale. The
Right.
Milk Bar at that point, I mean, wasn't nearly as big as it is now, but still had, I think, 5 or 6 locations across New York City.
Mm. Okay. And then you ended up deciding to go back home.
Yes. So in 2012, I was definitely feeling a little antsy and not totally sure what the next step was for me. I felt like I had, spent this time kind of figuring out what field I wanted to be in, but I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do with that. And I spent a little time back in Detroit, doing some internships. I worked at a place called Avalon International Bread and Zingerman's Bakehouse, and they were very, very brief internships that I was able to do through my job at Milk Bar. But it really allowed me to be exposed to businesses that have a real kind of social mission behind them,
Hmm.
and kind of a triple bottom line. So everyone can define that a little bit differently, but I think the mission that I learned at Avalon really stuck with me, which was to be not only focusing on your profit, but on people and the planet as well.
Right.
And that connection with food really resonated with me. And then I visited California for the first time back then, and I went to these businesses in San Francisco that were employee run and employee owned and cooperative, and that was really appealing to me. And so I figured that kind of scene was already happening in Detroit. Plus, I had these kind of familial connections there, so it all seemed like a good idea.
Right. So what led you to starting Sister Pie?
That whole experience, because like it was basically as simple as I'm moving back to Detroit to start Sister Pie.
Okay.
So yeah, so as soon as I kind of made that connection, I was like, I'm doing this, and then that's how it happened. So I launched the business Thanksgiving of 2012, and I
Okay.
moved back in September of 2012.
Okay. So it was quick right after you moved back home.
Yeah, yeah, because that was the whole kind of the reason for moving was to do it.
Right.
So it wasn't like I was moving without a plan. Um, that was the plan.
Okay. And were you
Yeah.
always into baking pies? Was that something that you did even as a child?
I mean, I baked the occasional pie with my mom for Thanksgiving or, for a random Sunday dinner, but it wasn't something that I did a lot. I definitely started to bake pies when I was in my early 20s and kind of experimenting with food, and pie was something that was really challenging to me at first, and also I just love to eat it so much. So I always had a fondness for pie.
Yeah.
And then I also worked at 420 Blackbirds for a summer before I moved back, which was another bakery in Brooklyn. And they obviously specialize in pie. And so that was another way for me to kind of confirm my love for that medium.
Yeah. Now, I read that you started it in the home of your parents.
Correct.
Okay. And that's great that your parents were that supportive.
Oh, yeah. I think they were just so happy to have me back in
Yeah.
Michigan that they would
Right.
let them do anything. But yeah, I moved back into my childhood bedroom. I used their kitchen to experiment and test recipes, and I think they were mostly happy about that part. I think it was more challenging when I, had to bake a lot of pies at once, or I would kind of take over if I had a special order. But, that was really not even a full year that I was doing that. So I was so grateful that they allowed me to kind of truly take over their lives for a minute.
Right.
Um, and it was kind of a nice adjustment after living in New York for so long
Yeah.
to kind of have comfort of my parents' house.
So how long were you in their house as the business?
So just a year.
Okay.
Yeah, I lived there for a year, but there were like 4 months of that year that I lived with a friend, closer to Detroit, and so I was baking pies out of her house for a while. But then I think I broke her oven, maybe, or her oven broke. I don't know which one happened, but I moved back in with my parents for a little bit before I moved to Detroit the next year. So in 2013, I moved myself personally to the city of Detroit, and I also moved to the business there. We started working out of a shared commercial kitchen space in Detroit.
That's some quick success. The pies must be awesome.
I guess it was success. It was more, I think, just me saying like, well, this is what's happening now. So I think that was like the goal after that first year was to get licensed so that I could expand the reach of the product a little bit more.
Yeah.
And so that was sort of like the natural next step was to be able to be in Detroit, closer to where I wanted the bakery to ultimately be, and to be able to really get the pie to more people other than just, family and friends.
Right. So you've now been open, is it 6 years?
Uh, yeah, it's been, well, I started the business 6 years ago, but the bakery doors have been open for about 3.5 years.
Okay. Great. So you have some really interesting pie flavors, which also really makes your bakery really unique.
Well, thank you.
Yes.
I think, we're always working with seasonal fruits and vegetables, so that really allows us to kind of get creative because I know that if I've only got, apples or squash to work with, I kind of want to think about what I can do to make those exciting and interesting without making them inaccessible, So it's kind
Right.
of about that balance of finding flavors that work together, and that are approachable, but also, maybe something that you're going to go tell your friend about.
Yeah. So right now you have, of course, pies for Thanksgiving available, and let's see here. There's some interesting ones. Was it there's a tarragon squash? Is that what I'm?
Oh, it's actually cardamom tahini squash.
Cardamom.
So
There you
yeah,
go.
that
Yeah.
one has it's a winter squash puree that we make out of a variety of winter squash and also some pumpkin, and then that gets mixed into a filling that has cardamom cream. So we kind of steep cardamom pods in cream, and
Mm.
then on the bottom of the pie is a layer of tahini walnut paste.
Oh my
And so
gosh.
it's this really nice combination of flavors, but it kind of has the same texture as it's okay. Sorry, one of my employees just stopped in there.
That's okay.
Yeah, so if you'll hear all the background bakery noises.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but it's a really good pie. I think it scares people a little bit in the name, but
Yeah.
it's really just like a pumpkin pie with some different flavors.
Okay. And then your salted maple. I've read a bunch of people remarking about how wonderful your salted maple is.
Oh, well, that's good to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's actually it was kind of created out of in like an homage to those bakeries that I mentioned that I worked at, 420 Blackbirds and Milk Bar. I think it's important to, really talk about where you're from and where you learned things, and they both had a pie that were kind of similar to it in a way. Like Milk Bar had their sort of chess pie that was called crack pie, and it was this creamy filling with cornmeal in it. And then 420 Blackbirds had a honey pie that had salt on top.
Mm.
And so I was thinking, well, I really love that style of pie because I feel like both of those bakeries really did a good job in kind of bringing back that style of pie to the masses.
Right.
And you'll see everyone doing something like it now. And so it's pretty cool. And so we have our own version, which is, salted maple. And we use grade B Michigan maple syrup, cream, eggs, a really great local cornmeal, and it's just delicious. I think it's a nice balance of sweet and salty, and people seem to dig it.
It sounds wonderful. I'm looking at the cookbook right now, and the toasted marshmallow butterscotch pie is amazing looking. That is beautiful.
Oh, thanks.
Do you actually have like a pie crust recipe in the book?
Yes, there's a whole chapter
Oh, good.
called dough. There's the dough and the crust. And
Okay.
so it's actually a very long chapter in the books because we talk about, I go into great detail about our dough process, but we also have like maybe like 5 or 6 different dough recipes in that chapter.
Okay. When you make your pie crust at the bakery, I've heard and read that you use butter.
Yes, yes, we are a butter bakery and butter pie people. We use a European style unsalted butter. The one that we use is called Plugra, and what makes European style butter different is that it has a higher butterfat percentage than traditional American style butter, which of course creates a flakier, more delicious tasting crust. And so we use that in all of our baked goods, and we just love it. We swear by it.
Now, is your pie crust pretty much the same for every pie, or do you change the recipe around?
So there are different recipes for some of the pies. So for example, the brandy pecan pie that's in the cookbook has a crust that is our all butter crust, but it also has some ground pecans. So we'll do little variations like that, and you'll see a few examples of that in the book. But for the most part, I would say that we focus on all butter crust.
Okay.
I add sugar and salt for flavor, just to
Okay.
bring out the flavor of the butter even a little bit more. But then, yeah, I mean, I guess in the case of I do like a basic all butter crust, and we do put apple cider vinegar in our liquid mixture, which brings out some nice tanginess as well. But then I think a pie crust can really be elevated when there's something else going on in the crust. So everything from rose petals to cornmeal to pecans make for a really wonderful addition and kind of like a texturally interesting crust as well.
Yeah. Wonderful. So, what would you say people do wrong while making crust?
I think one of the biggest things that people get messed up on is that they just haven't practiced enough. Because, pie is like a big endeavor, and it's not actually that difficult, but it really takes a lot of practice for you to get to a point where you feel confident. And so I think what ends up happening is that people make pie maybe once, twice a year, and every time it feels so daunting because they haven't really actually practiced it. And so I think if you can dedicate a day, and I talk about this a little bit in the book, to just making batch after batch of pie dough and either freezing it or rolling out crusts and freezing those, then you'll really, develop those instincts that you need to be able to feel confident about it going forward, because all of the tips and tricks are laid out, but it's really about the practice where you get good at something.
Did you know you could find Love You a Brunch on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube? Please check us out, follow, and subscribe. Also, if you'd like to ask a question or share a story, Skype us at Love You a Brunch or visit us at our website, loveyouabrunchpodcast.com, or you can email me at loveyouabrunchpodcast@gmail.com. I did see that you have recipes in there for savory pies as well. Are those big sellers for you?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we do savory hand pies for breakfast and lunch every day. They are made with our all butter flaky crust, and then we also have a mix of seasonal vegetables. So it can be anything from Brussels sprouts and sweet potato to curried lentil and potato, lots of potatoes in the hand pies. But we've also done, in the book there is a tomato, olive, and mozzarella hand pie that
Ooh, okay.
make summer, and it's kind of pizza-like.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think what we do at Sister Pie is just generally a lot of different types of pies.
Yeah. And it's nice that your menu changes with the season. So, you never get sick of one thing. From a season later, you're going to have something all new.
Totally. Yeah. And I think that took a while for our customers to get used to, because they wanted to be able to have apple pie any time of year or cherry pie any time of year, like most pie shops. But we don't do that, and I think it makes it exciting, and people can start to kind of understand with us what our goals are as a business to kind of support these local farmers who need us to use their produce as it comes through, and also it usually tastes a little bit better. I mean, of course we there's exceptions to every rule. We don't get lemons and limes locally or in season. So you do your best, and I think that's what we're aiming for.
So when you go to, say, a farmer's market and you get your ingredients and there's new things available locally, do you make up something on the spot? Do you test it on your employees? How does that work?
Yeah, there's usually some recipe testing planning involved. So we will write out some recipes, and someone, whether it's me or someone else on staff, will test it. Many of us will taste it. We give feedback, and then we'll do another version. And usually we end up doing about 3 or 4 versions until we get to the one that is really right.
Okay.
And we do try to get a variety of people's opinions on it.
Yeah. And what would you say is your best selling pie right now for this season?
Well, for the Thanksgiving, we just created an apple butter custard pie. It's not in the book, but it sold out so quickly for our Thanksgiving orders, and it is a pie that we make. We make our own apple butter in the oven, and then pass it through a food mill, and then that gets mixed into kind of a custard filling that we make with scalded cream and some spices and eggs and sugar, just a little bit of sugar because you really get most of the sugar from the apple butter. And then we roast some apples every day to kind of layer into the pie. And so it's a super creamy texture that is just like quintessential fall with these roasted apples. And it's really nice. We dip the crust in cinnamon sugar.
Oh, I bet the bakery smells wonderful when you come in there.
Oh, yeah. There's so many different smells going on at once, but they usually work pretty well together.
What would be your favorite pie that you guys sell?
My favorite pie is one that we're making on the menu right now. It's a cranberry crumble. It's made with tart Michigan cranberries. We put some of them in whole, and then we mix them in with a cranberry compote, and there's a crumble topping, and it's just, to me, it's just pie perfection. I love the sweet tart balance.
Yeah. So are you a fruit pie person or a custard pie person? So I'm guessing a fruit with the cranberries.
I am 100% a fruit pie person all the time.
Yeah.
I eat the other pies mostly just to test them, but I love pie for fruit.
Right. Well, who doesn't love pie? And when you can get it with all seasonal ingredients, I mean, that just makes it so much better.
I agree.
Willow Moon Publishing provides podcasting, print, ebook, and audiobook publishing services. We work to provide access to quality books that all too often are overlooked by the Big Five. Our goal is to help authors who tell engaging, dynamic, and compelling stories bring their work into the hands of readers. For more information about our books, our authors, our podcasts, or working with Willow Moon Publishing, please visit us at willowmoonpub.com. So what made you decide to write your book?
Back in 2016, early 2016, I had said to myself, oh, I think I want to write a cookbook one day, and maybe I'll start doing it this year. And then I promptly kind of forgot about that because I was too busy running the business.
Yeah.
But then this woman wrote me, and it happened to be my future editor. She had come to the bakery with her children. She actually lives out in California, so it was quite strange.
Wow, yeah. Like fate.
And she just reached out and asked if I'd ever thought about writing a book, and so then the process began, and here we are.
So when someone goes and buys your book, what do you think should be their first recipe to try if they've never really made a pie before?
I think that they should just work on the dough alone for a while.
Okay.
Yeah, I think they should practice the dough, get some of those crusts going, and then I think once they're in that, they should pick a recipe from the Anytime Pies chapter because, it won't be dependent on what season. And those are simple recipes where you basically just put things in a bowl and mix them up and pour them in the pie shell. And so it's a great way to kind of put something into the crust that you just made.
You look so young to be so successful at this time. Do you feel like you're getting, I don't know, like, do you have a future in like maybe Food Network? I could see that.
I mean, I guess I'm not that young.
Yeah, no, you look very young.
Oh, thank you. you probably just can't see my tired eyes up close. But I definitely would be interested in that kind of stuff. I mean, I think I'm always trying to explore like what the future of my role is for the business, because we don't have plans to, have multiple locations or to ship. And so we want to make our bakery the best it can be here while kind of maintaining the fact that, we have this national voice. People know about us. So what can we do with that? And I think for us, a lot of it is going to be about, sharing our business practices and getting involved in that kind of food justice. And I think that's what we're looking to do. So I think that could involve a variety of different things.
Right. Well, there you go. Any Food Network channels, Lisa is available. I think she'd be great. Listen to her speaking. She's awesome. Give her show. Give her own show.
Thank you.
Yeah. So also, I did want to bring up that I saw on your website something about the Detroit Food Academy that you guys help with.
Yeah. So every year we would get so many different donation requests. Food businesses, once you open a business, you just are inundated with them. And it was always a struggle for us to kind of pick and choose who we could support financially or through pie donations or whatever. And so we decided this past year that every year we would just focus on one business and try to do as much as we could for that one organization. So it's not really a business, a nonprofit organization is what I meant. And so the Detroit Food Academy is the one we chose this year. We had worked with them in the past, but it's an organization that is working with youth in Detroit, specifically high school students, to kind of teach them about being food entrepreneurs and give them the tools to explore baking and cooking and selling their products and marketing them and basically every element of food production. And we really love it, love the organization. We've had an intern from there every year with us, every summer. So, but this year we did several workshops with the students. We hosted an intern, and we even had the students help us design a special cookie that we sold all summer. And the proceeds of the cookie would go back to the Detroit Food Academy. So,
Oh, nice.
really fun.
Yeah. So you really are following your triple bottom line business plan.
We are trying our darndest.
Yeah.
Not perfect, but yeah.
Can you explain that a little bit more for anybody that might be listening and doesn't know exactly what that is?
Sure. So a triple bottom line business is kind of defined as a business that doesn't only have one bottom line, which is traditionally the profit or the financial element, but you're making all of your decisions with people and the planet in mind as well. Mm-hmm. And so it allows you to kind of think outside just the money part of your business, which of course is very important, and you need the money to run and to continue. But none of that really seems to matter if you don't have a business that you feel is making an impact on other people's lives in a positive way, and kind of on our Earth's life, on the life of the Earth, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I mean, food businesses generally produce a ton of waste, and so to not really be conscious about that, is a detriment to the planet. And I think also food businesses run on people, and there's so much labor that goes into it, and so it's important to be just so connected to what is going on with people. And I think for us that really means trying to listen as much as we can and to act on what we hear, and that is a lot easier said than done, because sometimes you just want to say, like, this is the way it is and you got to do it. But it's actually been the bakery has gotten so much better the more that we listen to what our employees are experiencing and what they need.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Especially in our world today, I think that's very important.
I think so too.
Tell everybody where they can find your book, where they can find out about Sister Pie and about you.
Yeah. So you can find our book at many bookstores. You can find it online. I recommend visiting sisterpie.com/cookbook. We've got all the information about the cookbook there. It's also where you can learn a lot more about us. You can follow us on Instagram at Sister Pie Detroit. And also come visit us in Detroit. We're in the West Village, located at the corner of Parker and Kercheval.
Awesome. So do you plan on being there for a while?
I hope so.
Yeah. Okay. And
we rent, so we'll see.
And you don't ship your pies?
We don't ship our pies, no. And that was another kind of reason for wanting to do the cookbook, was so that we could share our pies with more people, but not necessarily be shipping them across the country.
Right. Oh, what a shame. I would have loved to order some pie for Thanksgiving. Lisa, thank you so much for joining us today. please, everyone go out and look for Sister Pie. You can find it online. You can find it in any mortar bookstores. Anywhere that you can find a cookbook, you will find Sister Pie.
Thank you so much.
So, what goals do you have for Sister Pie for the next couple years?
I think we want to just continue to do what we're doing and to just do it better and better. Hopefully be able to expand our wholesale accounts a little bit, maybe teach some more classes, and just continue to focus on that triple bottom line mission.
Yeah, perfect. It's a great business plan, and when I see you on TV in a couple years, I'm going to say I said she'd be there.
All right, sounds good.
Okay. Thank
Thank
you so
you.
much, Lisa. And you know what? Have a great Thanksgiving holiday, and I hope you guys sell out of everything you have.
Thank you so much.
I want to thank Lisa Ludwinski for speaking with me today. Make sure you check out her bakery, Sister Pie. If you're ever in Detroit, Michigan, go to her website, sisterpie.com, and pick up that cookbook so you can get all of the delicious recipes from her bakery. Also, I want to thank you for joining me today, and please join us next week when we talk to Rachel from Rachel's Creperie and Cafe. Thank you so much. Have a great week, and see you next time on Love You a Brunch.